Very good. Welcome to the Red Hook Town Board meeting of Wednesday, June 24th, 2020. Would you be kind enough to say the Pledge of Allegiance with me, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all very much. Thank you again to Danielle at Panda for assisting us. We always seem to have a little something technologically when we begin these Zoom meetings. This meeting, like all of our Red Hook Town Board meetings, is being live streamed onto the Panda website, pandatv23.org, and on YouTube. And so you can watch along and see our meeting for this evening. And so what I'd like to do now is show you tonight's agenda. It's a fairly short agenda this evening. And here we go. Let me know if you can see this.
I can see it.
Okay, very good. So tonight, in addition to our town board agenda items, we have a public hearing. The public hearing is on a protection project, Brittany Hollow Farm. It's a joint effort between the town, Scenic Hudson, Dutchess Land Conservancy, and the county. And so the public hearing is to decide whether or not to approve a contribution towards that preservation project. And so that will begin at 7:45. We have with us Erin Hoagland from Dutchess Land Conservancy, who will be making a brief presentation. And in addition to that, we have our county legislator, Chris Munn, with us as well, since it's a county project. And also he wants to give us a very brief update on financial report for the county. So he'll be joining us during some of our financial reports as well. Okay, so I'm going to jump around a little bit here since we have a few minutes.
Excuse me, Robert. Christine, Kane, and Jacob are not with us tonight?
I'm right here.
They're there.
Okay.
They're just not, Christine won't show you everybody unless you scroll down.
Okay, well, I need that for attendance. I'm sorry.
Yep, everybody's here.
You got me too, Sue?
Yeah, I see you, Bill.
Okay.
Okay, very good.
Thank you.
No worries. Okay, so we're gonna jump over to agenda item, to the supervisor's report, rather. And here we go. It takes a little while. I apologize to the folks at home to go back and forth. This is rather cumbersome to show the documents, but they are all available on our website as well. And so tonight we are giving the monthly report on the financial condition for the town. And so we summarize it with the last page of the report, which shows our current financial status, which is that we began the month of May with an opening balance of $8,294,656. We had receipts of $774,717. We had disbursements of over $1 million, and our remaining balance at the end of May is $8,052,000 and change. We have very minor budget adjustments, totaling just a couple $1,000 related to office supplies, a little bit for the culvert project, and You have in your packets, as always, the variance report and also a tally of the funds that are in the Dedicated Community Preservation Fund. And we'll be speaking briefly about what the fund is able to do. Right now, that fund stands at $1.4 million, and that is the real estate transfer fee that is above and beyond the median sales price in the county of a residential home. And that is a fee that buyers pay when they come into the community and contribute towards the preservation of Red Hook. Okay, are there any questions about your supervisor's report or the few budget adjustments that are there? If not, I would entertain a motion to accept the supervisor's report.
So moved.
Thank you, Christine. All in favor?
Do we need a second?
We need a second.
I'll second.
Second. Thank
Yeah.
you, Jacob and Bill.
Aye.
Bill O'Neill and Bill Hamill.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Thanks very much. At this time, we'll also have the town clerk's report. Sue, please.
Town Clerk Monthly Report for May 2020. Total local shares remitted to supervisor as town revenue, $1,086.50. Amount remitted to New York Ag and Markets for their spayed and neutered program, $50. Amount remitted to New York State Department of Health for marriage licenses, $67.50, for a total state and local revenue of $1,204. I also have done my settlement with the county for our taxes. I had a warrant of $8,497,000. $3,157,000 is the town's portion of it. The balance of that is the county's. So I reconciled everything. It came out perfect. I returned the unpaid to the county, at which time they will attempt to collect that. And it was generally about the same as we always do, about 10% gets uncollected. So that's a job that started in January and just ended in June. So I'm happy to say it's successful.
Thank you very much, Sue.
Good job, Sue.
Is
Thank
there
you.
a motion to accept the clerk's report?
So moved.
A second?
Second. Second.
And all in favor, Christine,
Aye.
Bill Hamill,
Aye.
myself, aye. Thank you very much.
Aye.
Okay, we have just a few announcements. The first is related to high school graduation. As you can imagine, this is a rather unusual year to graduate high school or college for that matter. And so there are two related ceremonies. The first will be a drive-through procession, which starts, it's this Saturday, June 26th. Line up at 10:30 at the Lyceum Theaters, and the procession will begin at 11 o'clock. It's all, in automobiles. And so it goes up Route 9, and then it turns left and ends at the Red Hook High School. So if you are available on Saturday and can socially distance and cheer them on, of course, I know that they would appreciate that. Graduation is tentatively scheduled for June 30th. That's at the Hyde Park Drive-In. That sounds like a rather unusual, but maybe fun way to have a graduation. I know there's some talk of maybe trying to do a more traditional graduation, but currently it's June 30th, Hyde Park Drive-In. I don't have a start time for that, but as soon as we get more information, we will send out an announcement. July 4th, holiday is coming up, and there will be fireworks in this area. It will be at the fairgrounds. The doors open at 7:30, and the fireworks start approximately at 9:30. Everything is happening within the vehicle, and there's room for approximately 300 of them. So you may want to consider that if you're deciding whether or not you'd like to attend. Doors open at 7:30. Okay, more announcements. Our recreation park construction is back in full swing finally after months of being down. And so we would like to let you know that the rec park is scheduled to be mostly finished mid to late July. We still will have 2 outstanding issues. The bathroom is tentatively scheduled to be finished at the end of July, and fencing will come in as well at that time. But the multi-purpose field is complete. It's looking beautiful with the lighting. They've completed the pathways around all of the playground areas and the rest of the park. It's looking terrific. The basketball court is just waiting for some surfacing, which will happen in the next 2 weeks. That's also looking terrific. And on the west side of Linden, the field has been constructed with fencing, parking. They just did a little bit of paving for the handicap parking, and they have a beautiful pathway trail to begin our section of the Village to Village Trail. And so we expect within the next couple of weeks that you'll be getting an announcement from us about when the park will open. We are going to institute some safety policies and procedures. You'll start to see everything from hand sanitizing stations throughout the park areas, and we will keep you updated on that. With regard to the coronavirus, an update, as you probably already know, the Mid-Hudson region entered phase 3 yesterday. Phase 3 primarily deals with in-restaurant and dining at 50% capacity and additional personal services. And so we're very happy that our restaurants and other businesses are finally starting to get business. Of course, we would encourage you to take every precaution, wear your masks when guided to do so. The success of our health is also tied to the success of our economy. We don't want to be in the same situation as some of the southern states are now, that are having real large spikes in their outbreaks, and some of them may be in a position where they have to consider closing some of their businesses. So that's coronavirus. And last is Town Hall. Town Hall has been closed for the last couple of months. We're going to continue to close Town Hall to the public. We're servicing as best as we can. We certainly miss seeing you in person. It's not the same, but we are going to wait until a few weeks after the 4th phase. This is typically when you start to see spikes in the transmission of the virus. And before we go ahead and we put both our residents and our employees at risk, we'll take every precaution, but we're going to see how reopening of the Mid-Hudson region goes before we do that. So we're going to continue for the month of July. We're going to remain closed to the public. We do have a mail slot out front and a very large box for larger items on the side entrance. And I hope you found that we're good about turning around anything that you need. All the contact information for our departments are on the website, and we will, of course, keep you posted. All right, any other announcements? If not, I think we're going to move right into the public hearing. We're just a couple of minutes late. I apologize. This is the
Robert, can I just say one thing real quick? I don't mean to interrupt. You mentioned the high school graduation. I just wanted to let everybody know that this is not open to the public. So this is going to be very limited attendance at the drive-in theater. So if you would normally go to enjoy the ambiance of watching all the seniors graduate and listen to the speeches, that's unfortunately not going to be available. It may be streamed, I'm not sure, but it's really going to be 1 car per family. And even the families are not allowed to get out of the car. Only the graduate will get out of the car for a socially distanced procession and we can't even get out of the car to take pictures. So it's very restricted. I just want to make sure before people showed up and ended up disappointed.
Thank you. Yes. Good cautionary remark. Thank you, Chris. Okay, I see that Karen Rue has joined us from DLC. How are you?
Hello, thank you.
Perfect
Nice
timing.
to see you all.
Perfect timing. So we are going to now open the public hearing and ask Sue McCann if you'd be kind enough to read the public hearing notice.
Certainly. And please take notice that a public hearing will be held by the Town Board of the Town of Red Hook on June 24th, 2020 at 7:45 p.m. local time for the Brittany Hollow Farm project described below, pursuant to Town's Community Preservation Fund program, also known as the CPF program, to hear all interested persons regarding the acquisition of an interest or right in real property to preserve open space pursuant to Section 247 of the General Municipal Law, including the purchase of a contractual right necessary to achieve the purpose of such provisions for each such project. Brittany Hollow Farm, application submitted by Darrell J. and Deborah J. Mosier for acquisition of a conservation easement or a third-party enforcement right in a conservation easement proposed to be held by Dutchess Land Conservancy with respect to approximately 60 total acres, consisting of approximately 37.39 acre parcel of property, tax ID number 134-8896271000073869 in the town of Red Hook, New York, and approximately 10.01 acre parcel of property, tax map number 134-8896271000180845 in the town of Red Hook, New York, and approximately 12.6 acre parcel of property, tax ID number 135-089-6271-0006-0795 in the town of Rhinebeck, New York, all located on Albany Post Road in Dutchess County, New York. With respect to the project described above, Dutchess Land Conservancy plans to apply for funding for a portion of the acquisition and project costs from the Dutchess County Partnership for Manageable Growth and the Scenic Hudson Land Trust, Inc. It is proposed that the town of Red Hook would participate in the portion of the project located within the town of Red Hook. The total project cost, including proposed program partner funding, is estimated not to exceed $336,800, with the town shares estimated not, not to exceed $94,675. The town share is proposed to be financed by the CPF fund. Due to the ongoing COVID pandemic, the town hall is closed to the general public until further notice. Pursuant to Executive Order number 202.1 as extended, issued by Governor Cuomo, and advisors issued by federal, state, and local officials related to the COVID-19 virus, the public will not be permitted to attend in person. Board members are expected to participate in the public hearing via teleconference or video conference. Please refer to the meeting agenda to be posted on the town website, www.redhook.org, listing the specific link which will allow the public to view and listen to the proceeding live, which is expected to be available at www.pandatv23.org. Click on Watch Live. Project documents will be posted with the meeting agenda on the town website. All interested persons will be given an opportunity to be heard as follows. The public is encouraged to submit written comments by email or telephone in advance hearing to rmckeon@redhook.org and 845-758-4622 by 4:00 p.m. the day of the hearing. Please note CPF hearing in the subject. 2, written comments may be dropped in the town's drop box in advance of the hearing at the Town Hall, 7340 South Broadway, Red Hook, New York, by 4:00 p.m. the day of the hearing. Please observe the recommendations of the CDC regarding distancing and use of masks. All comments so received in advance of the hearing will be noted in the hearing record. Interested persons may also comment by email or telephone to rmckeon@redhook.org, 845-758-4622 on the date of the hearing from the time of the opening the hearing until the close of the hearing. All reasonable accommodations will be made for persons with disabilities. In such a case, please notify the town clerk in advance at the above address or by phone 758-4606 so that arrangements can be made. Please take further notice that a copy of said application is available for review on the town's website. By order of the Town Board of the Town of Red Hook, dated June 3rd, 2020, Sue McCann, Town Clerk, Town of Red Hook.
Thank you very much, Sue. And at this time, I'd like to open the meeting and invite Erin and Karen to make a brief presentation about the project and the property that is the subject of the public hearing. And I believe I have one of your maps up here for folks to take a look at.
Great. Well, thank you so much for having us tonight to present on this project. As Robert mentioned, Karin and I are from the Dutchess Land Conservancy. I'm the Senior Land Projects Manager, and Karin is our Director of Land Projects. We've had great success in partnering with the town on previous easement projects, and we'd be thrilled to work together again. Is there any way we could bring up actually the aerial map with the building envelope in red? Awesome, thank you. So many of you probably know, but Brittany Hollow Farm is owned by Debbie and Daryl Mosier and consists of 3 tax parcels, as Sue read out. It's located 1.5 miles south of the village of Red Hook on Route 9. The 60-acre property straddles the Red Hook-Rhinebeck town line with 47 acres in Red Hook and 1 13-acre tax parcel in the town of Rhinebeck. The land serves as a gateway into both towns, obviously north and south on Route 9. And the large agricultural fields are visible from south of the property. If you're traveling north on Route 9, you can kind of look northwest and see those back farm fields. And again, driving north, the historic 1900 farmhouse and barn sit at the entrance to the farm. So we're working to purchase the development rights of the property and place a perpetual conservation easement to limit development on the land, keep it conducive to farming, and protect it in perpetuity. Per the easement, 1 3.5 approximately acre building envelope would be settled around the existing structures and kind of the main farmstead area on the property. And pursuant to the agreement, most of the existing and future structures would remain and be constructed there in the future. Other than that, subdivision rights will be extinguished, and there also will be some areas designated for resource protection that aren't currently delineated at this time, but as the negotiations go on, we'll map out those areas protecting some of the more sensitive water resources. So we can go to the soils map. Thank you. So just in terms of talking about resource protection of the property, more than half, about 63% of the property consists of important agricultural soils made up of both prime and statewide important, which are considered among the best soils for growing food and fiber, according to the USDA, and these soils are mapped by the USDA. And then you can see in the middle swath there's a big area of what they call prime if drained. So it's a little bit of a wetter area, but if it were to dry out or be drained, it would be considered prime soils. If we can move now to the water map, that would be great.
It's over here. There it is.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So continuing to touch on natural resources, majority of the property overlies Zone 1 and Zone 2 Aquifer Recharge areas. Those are those big orange and kind of cream colored swaths So those are important for groundwater replenishment, and these areas are most vulnerable to contamination due to their high rate of percolation of water into the ground. The property also contains 700 feet of frontage on the Rhinebeck Hill, as you can see on the kind of eastern side of the property there, which is a tributary to the Landsman Kill. Also buffers an unnamed subtributary to the Landsman Kill that's off-site to the west, running through that big area of DEC wetlands. There are also some 100-year floodplain on the southeastern corner of the property. So all kind of important resources that we look to protect through these projects. So over 50% of the property is engaged in active agriculture. The expansive hay fields dominate the majority of the farm, and they are hayed by neighboring landowner Frank Vosberg to support his Kasicki Farm cattle operation. Debbie and Daryl also grow 2 acres of potatoes and garlic, which they sell to restaurants at farmers markets, as well as to the Montgomery Place farm stand. And they plan to grow several acres of corn this year. They also donate some of their produce to local food pantries, and they plan to plant more vegetables this year in order to donate food, considering the effects of COVID-19 on our local food security. There's a greenhouse on the property, which is where the Mosers start seeding some of their flowers for the neighboring and non-contiguous pick your own flower operation just up the road. And they've also received a number of inquiries over the last year or so regarding the use of sunflower fields for photo shoots, and they'll be growing a couple of acres of sunflowers during the 2020 season for wedding, engagement, and other special occasion photography sessions. Debbie and Daryl are really committed to keeping the land open and available for farming, and they hope to eventually transfer the land to a younger beginning farmer who will continue the legacy of agricultural use of the property into the future. So placing an easement will just ensure that that transfer can be made to a farmer. Protection of Brittany Hollow Farm meets a number of the Red Hook Comp Plan goals and objectives, one being to maintain and protect the rural character and scenic resources of the community, conservation of the natural environment, and continuation of the diversification of agricultural activities in the town. Preserving natural resources also identified it as a main goal. As I mentioned, there's a lot of valuable water resources and the extensive agricultural soils. The property is also identified as being located in the Conservation Rural Development Area on the town's land use map, and preservation of agriculture is prioritized because of its importance in contributing to the town's economy and rural character, and conversion of prime and important agricultural soils into residential development is overall discouraged in the town documents. And then as far as the Red Hook Open Space Plan, the farm is identified as falling within a gateway zone as well as an agricultural gateway at the southern entrance to the town. The property also shows up as some priorities in the New York State Open Space Plan adopted in 2016. It identifies farmland protection as a critical component of the state's overall efforts to conserve open space. And the Open Space Plan does prioritize the Hudson Valley as being part of the Hudson Valley New York City food shed, which gives the property a high ranking within the food shed study as being a viable property to contribute to that kind of flow of food to New York City. And then, of course, you know, we all know this area is under intense development pressure from all over, but, you know, given its location in the lower Hudson Valley, we're susceptible to second home estate type lots and buyers, and these properties are often open and flat and well drained and conducive to that kind of development. So obviously protecting the property will help to combat that kind of undesirable, in certain places, development. Karin, I don't know if you have anything you want to add or if there are any questions, and I can run through the budget.
No, I think Erin, you did a wonderful job of characterizing the property and the importance of protecting it. Yeah, I don't know if anyone has any questions or if you wanted to head right into the budget.
I actually had a quick question, at least what I hope is a quick question. Can you talk about where the old Hucklebush rail line is in relation to this property? Because I know that the Trails Committee has been looking, you know, long term at possible development of that for trails. Is that anywhere near this property?
You know, that is not a question I can answer. It's certainly something we can look into. I know that the Winnicke Land Trust was doing a bit of work way back, maybe under some other leadership, to make those connections along the Hucklebush line. But that was quite some time ago that I was kind of looped in on that. But we have, you know, had some recent experience in incorporating some, you know, priorities of towns in making rail trail connections in relation to also protecting farmland. So that's something I can definitely look into and see, you know, if it runs through the property or near it, what the opportunities are.
Yeah, I'm not sure it runs through it, but I think it's near it. So I just wanted to make sure that
Okay.
if there's an access needed or something, that it's not overlooked.
Okay.
It makes sense for this property.
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up. I'll definitely look into that.
Sure.
Yeah, thank you. That didn't come up in our research, but yeah, I can only echo what Erin said, that yes, we will look into it.
Great, thank you.
Thank you both. Okay, shall we go to the budget sheet?
All right, that would be great.
I can blow it up a little more.
Yeah. Oh, let's see. You know what? This actually looks like it may be.
Is that the old one? That's the old one.
Yeah, only because Chris did a great job of revamping it to break out specifically what is being allocated to Red Hook versus Rhinebeck, so that the board was clear on that. Should be dated 5/20, I
Well,
believe.
I think I'm just going to ask you to read it because I don't see it here.
Okay. Should I try to share my screen? It looks like I have the ability to.
Yes, would you do that?
Sure.
That would be helpful, yeah.
Yeah, let me just pull it up here. Oh, looks like I'm unable to while another participant is sharing. So I don't know if it's
Wait,
too
hang on.
complicated.
Let's see what we have here. Bear with me. Maybe it is in our documents and I just haven't found it.
Actually, now I'm able to, it looks like, since
Right.
if we want to do that.
Okay, go ahead.
Sorry.
Thank you.
Okay.
No, that's
Here
the
we go.
agenda one. You had it there for a moment.
Can everyone see my screen?
Yeah, but we're looking at the
Yes.
agenda now.
Yes.
Oh. You don't see the budget?
No, we did initially
there.
and then it came off.
Okay, sorry about that. Let me X out of the. Sorry about this.
That's okay.
How about now?
There you go.
Yay!
Okay, great. Sorry about that. So as you can see, we have a breakdown between the land costs, the estimated purchase of development rights for the land, and then the addition of the transaction costs, bringing our total project costs, as Sue mentioned, to $336,800. We have applied to Dutchess County for 50% of the purchase price. Basically, that's just the way their program works. They actually bring their own check to the closing. So their program isn't set up to contribute to any transaction costs. We do have commitment from Scenic Hudson for, let's see, that number's not right, for a portion of the development rights as well as the transaction costs. And then there's a breakdown Chris and I worked on differentiating basically what is going to Red Hook and what is going to Rhinebeck, so that it was clear to the board that there's no contribution from the town of Red Hook to Rhinebeck expenses. So the purchase price for the Red Hook portion is estimated at $223,965. And the ask from the town toward the purchase price is $70,875, with additional transaction costs of $23,800 for a total of the $94,675. And you can see that we're sharing, certain costs with Scenic Hudson and the town. The title insurance is broken out to be shared with Scenic Hudson and the town, and the survey as well, some of the appraisal, just making sure that there was no larger proportion than what the Red Hook portion makes up that's being contributed, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Karin, or Erin, can you explain, just for the folks at home, we have a couple of different entities. Scenic Hudson is making a financial contribution, but you'll be holding the easement for this project?
Right, yeah, Scenic Hudson and the county both are contributing, but we will be the sole easement holder. Scenic Hudson usually has the right of assignment in the event that for some reason, unlikely reason, DLC were to not exist anymore. All of our easements have a plan for assignments that they can still be stewarded and exist in perpetuity. And the county also usually holds a third-party right of enforcement, as I know the town will as well. And just to be very clear, the county, we have applied. They were expecting to make announcements in the spring about any involvement in these types of projects, but due to just delays in COVID and concerns about being tone deaf about making any announcements like this, they are holding off for now until the fall, at least at the moment. So we don't think it's a matter of if, but rather when, and they're aware of our approaching the town and Scenic Hudson's involvement. So they're aware of the other funds that are already committed.
Very good. And as a reminder to the folks at home, the $94,000 will come out of the Community Preservation Fund, which is a dedicated fund to be used for only these types of purposes, protecting open space, protecting or acquiring open space recreational lands. We've used it in the past. It can also be used for acquiring historic properties or structures. And so this comes out of that dedicated funding stream, which is ongoing until 2027, in which case we have to re-up it. So are there any questions for either Erin or Karin about the project, about the numbers? I know we've talked about it in several previous meetings.
I just one point of clarification. So on the map, you had the building envelope on the main portion of the farm indicated in red.
Right.
And then there was the northern piece where the pick your own flower operation is. And that was also shown in red. So is that also a building envelope, or was it just because it's not contiguous to the rest of the property that was shown?
Yeah, it's not contiguous, and it's actually not included in this application. It's only on the contiguous parcels. Yeah, sorry for any confusion there.
That's good. Thank you for clarifying that.
Yeah, it's actually supposed to be it's a poor choice in our colors. It's kind of a brownish red.
Yeah.
That doesn't translate well on this screen, I suppose. We need a different color scheme, but that is completely excluded. And yes,
Okay, great.
There's just one building envelope.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Chris, did you just want to walk us through our secret determination? Then we have a resolution in front of us.
So before we do that, could we just record, have we had any comments from the public prior to or calls during this hearing?
We have not. And as soon as we discuss the seeker, I'm probably going to entertain a motion to close the public hearing, since we've had a presentation of the application. We have not had any public hearing comments.
So we invited comments to come in because of COVID. We invited comments to come in a number of different ways, through either an email or a call to the supervisor's office before the hearing, physically dropping off comments to the clerk's box in the front of the town hall, or calling during the meeting if they were wanting to do that. So I just want to note that we haven't had any of those comments at this point. So for purposes of reviewing the resolution does make a finding that under seeker, this is now a type 2 activity. You might recall some of you in the past having gone through a different process, but the type 2 list was modified by DEC, and so now a plain straight conservation easement falls under a type 2 category that does not require further review. So then we would be able to consider the resolution. The process, again, for consideration of a conservation easement participation like this is spelled out in our town code, section 57. It requires a public hearing prior to making an acquisition, and the town will be a third-party holder in the easement so that it could enforce the easement in the event that the direct easement holder did not. It will be one of the preceding steps to the town board's decision-making on these is to have a report from the Conservation Advisory Board, and they
Actually, from the Community Preservation Fund.
I'm sorry.
Advisory
CPF
Board.
Advisory Board.
Yeah, and I was going to reference that, but
sorry, I read that wrong.
Thank you.
Thank you. Who met and reviewed the project and recommended it as being consistent with the plan and identified that it was one of the parcels that are to be acquired in Red Hook are part of the parcels that were identified in the plan, and they must be identified in the plan in order for you to proceed with acquisition. So the proposed resolution identifies a preliminary approval, and that is because not all of the funding has been identified as yet, as Aaron explained. So this resolution would authorize funding. It's essentially a funding commitment from the town, but it would be subject to final establishment of the specific terms of the conservation easement that will then come back to this board for final approval before we're able to close. And it establishes the not to exceed dollar amount of $94,675, which is what Karin went through in terms of the budget on the project. So this also then would be subject to final approval of the other funding sources that are expected to be received. Did you want me to go over any of the rest of it, or that's the substance of the resolution?
I think that's fine unless anybody has any questions, more specific questions. If not, I'd entertain a motion to close the public hearing. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. All in favor? Christine?
Aye.
Bill Hamill?
Aye.
Jacob?
Aye.
And myself, aye. We have in front of us resolution number...
You're mute, Sue.
So if you could unmute yourself there.
28.
28. Thank you very much. Okay.
There we go.
It's dated June 24th. It's a resolution granting preliminary approval for the use of monies in the Community Preservation Fund for the purchase of the development rights of the Brittany Hollow Farm. And I so move. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Christine. Because it involves funding, Jacob? All in favor?
Aye.
Bill Hamill?
Aye.
Bill O'Neill?
Aye.
Thank you very much. The resolution is approved. And thank you, Karin and Aaron, for joining us this evening. And thank you for your patience as we try to work through some of the technical stuff. We appreciate all that you do. We would not be able to do any of the preservation work that's so important to our community if we didn't have the experts and specialists who know what they're doing and coordinating all the agencies and land trusts and governmental entities in order to leverage these funds, because it's really quite remarkable. I'm not sure that the average Red Hook resident realizes that for every dollar that we use from this fund, we typically leverage it into $4 or more dollars. And so it's because of all the work that you do and knowing who to apply to and working with with the landowners to make it happen. And that said, I would like to thank the original preservationists, and those are the farmers themselves. You know, the Mosers operated a biodynamic farm for many years. In fact, many of you probably saw their farm stand at the Rhinebeck Farmers Market and bought a lot of their produce. And they are incredibly smart individuals. Daryl's worked at the CIA for many years. He knows what he's talking about. He's concerned about not only the environment, but you know, the future of the farm. And if it weren't for those landowners, we wouldn't have this continual canvas for future farmers to work with. So I want to thank the whole Mosher family. The kids were very involved in the farming for many years. And so many thanks to them for giving us this gift, really, and partnering with us. Okay, thank you all for joining us. We will we'll see you soon. You'll update us, and then let's get cracking on the next one.
Sounds good. Thanks for your support and participation. Appreciate it.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Just to really just thank you for the town of Red Hook as really being a leader in terms of municipal involvement, and I know that, you know, it's certainly something we ask other towns to look to for inspiration, and your support of farmers and farmland protection is incredibly helpful and wonderful. So thank you.
Well, thank you, and thank the voters who voted this tool in place. Some of them maybe knew and don't even know. In 2007, this was a subject of a public referendum, and because of all the projects that were done, they can drive West Curly Corners Road and see that 80% of that road is preserved in perpetuity. And so they'll always have that beautiful working landscape to look at when they live in this community.
Yeah,
so,
incredible.
Very good.
Well, thank you, everyone. Have a good evening.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Okay, very good. Chris Munn, are you there, our county legislator? Is he still there? Has he left?
I am here.
He is there. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
And thank you on behalf of Red Hook for your support for this project. And obviously, you know, in this difficult financial time, you know, projects like this tend to get a little more scrutiny than normal. But certainly, this is very important. It's in perpetuity.
Absolutely.
So,
absolutely. And you know, the county's been very proactive on these, you know, projects and has been very supportive of protecting open space, especially across Northern Dutchess. We were lucky to protect one of the few remaining parcels in East Fishkill, Lake Walton, down south last term. But generally speaking, it's just, you know, a wonderful thing. And hopefully the county will be able to approve the half of the funding that goes into this later this year. So, and from the town's perspective, obviously it doesn't even come out of your budget. It's all in that separate fund, and you can't use that money for anything else anyway. So it's not as if you're, you know, deciding between protecting land and, you know, other things you could spend it on. You're basically deciding whether the parcel itself is worth protecting or not. So kudos to the town board and of course Nick Hudson for moving forward on this project and all the projects.
Okay, thank you. And can we segue, Chris, you wanted to discuss, you wanted to join us tonight to give us a brief presentation on the county's finances. Obviously, we've been talking a lot in town about the impact to us. Some of it is impact that sort of passes through your doors, if you will, down in Poughkeepsie. And so we do have, you had asked me to put up on the screen a few slides. Can you just tell the folks at home what they're looking at, first of all?
Certainly. So As we all know, we're suffering the aftermath of the COVID-19 first run of the COVID-19 pandemic. Obviously, it's still around, and everyone should be, as we heard earlier, wearing their masks and doing their social distancing. Luckily, we've now entered phase 3, which allows us to move one step forward to a full, although cautious, reopening with 50% occupancy in the restaurants. I would definitely make sure, please, this does not mean there's no COVID out there. Please wear your masks. Back in March, I was urging the county to go further than the state. I was asking the county Department of Health to mandate face coverings, for example, for employees in essential businesses to try to prevent the spread. I mean, it was important that these supermarkets and things be open, but we certainly, I think, could use more protections, and that was not that didn't go forward. But we've been following basically what the state has been asking at the county level and moving forward with that. Unfortunately, this shutdown has had a huge impact on the county budget and town budgets and the state budget. So as we all know, unemployment is way up. The last measure that we have is 14% in Dutchess County, and that's 21,000, which frankly is a huge number. That's if it's spread equally throughout the county, that's 600, 700 people in Red Hook. So it's just unimaginable, and that's probably an undercount because it doesn't include a lot of people who are freelance and other things like that. The driving season, gas taxes are going to be lower than they were because people aren't traveling. So we're going to end up with much less in terms of that kind of revenue for our budgets. The housing market is taking a hit. Now prices are up because I think people are fleeing the city because they see it as a problem in terms of pandemics and second waves and everything else. So maybe that's, I guess, a silver lining in a sense, but the number of closed sales is down. So that's going to hurt our mortgage tax receipts as well. So hopefully a lot of this will come back, but in terms of all across the board, things are hurting a lot. So financially, sales tax, if you want to move to the next slide, the sales tax is the biggest, one of the biggest hits that we're facing right now. The county's receipts are down over 30% during the COVID-19 time period here and during the shutdown. And, I suspect that they will start to rebound a little bit, but we certainly can't assume, it's not reasonable to assume that we'll be returning to full capacity. Unfortunately, I think, a number of businesses may not reopen, sadly. In addition, a lot of people are going to be very cautious, and even a restaurant opening at 50%. I mean, that's hard. A restaurant, it's a struggling business to start with, a lot of the times. And, it's going to be a very difficult time for a lot of people. It's not like you throw a switch and things get better. So, the projected 2020 hit, the county projects it's going to be between $30 and $50 million in the sales tax. And that's, pretty huge. Now, the towns are protected to a point, but, based on what happened when the sales tax sharing agreement was renegotiated and the money was taken away, so much money was taken away from the towns and cities by the county back in 2014. But it's unlikely we'll get to that. I mean, that would be a $60 or $70 million drop. So it's unlikely we'll get to that protection level. So, but, you can certainly expect a huge hit in sales tax. Basically your extra bonus check that you normally get in February and March above and beyond the base number is going to be down significantly. So that's basically, if that would be $0 if we only collected 166 million in sales tax, at a $40 million drop, that's where we would be. So, you know, you're looking at getting a quarter or less perhaps of what you got based on these projections that the county's budget office put together. Now, you know, we'll have to see, you know, what happens, because nobody knows the future. If, you know, we don't have a second wave, which has been virtually guaranteed by epidemiologists, if we don't have a second wave this fall, hopefully things will continue to build, and, you know, but there's tremendous uncertainty, and no matter what happens, I think we're looking at many years of slower growth in terms of trying to build back up, you know, similar, if not worse than what we saw in the Great Recession. Yeah, so the state budget could make things even worse. It's like no good news, sorry. It's like the big rain cloud coming here. But I gotta be honest, you know, the state may be cutting, if the state doesn't get federal aid, and for example, the CARES Act. So in Congress, there was the CARES Act, I believe it was called, was passed by the House of Representatives, and the Senate refuse to take it up. But it would have brought the county 160 million, I believe it would be, $160 million in terms of relief, which would go a long way to making us whole, and, you know, getting and making the towns whole. But we don't know when or if any of that is going to happen. You know, they continue to block it in the Senate, in the United States Senate. They don't even bring it to a vote. There's supposedly some bills kicking around, but, you know, they look at, oh, wow, you know, it's only still 14% or 15% unemployment nationwide. It didn't go to 25, so we don't have to do anything else. You know, that's certainly not how I would approach it, but that appears to be the consensus among the Republicans in the Senate. So we don't know if or when we'll see any money. We don't know the structure of that bill, whether the money will end up with the state only, or whether it would go to the state and the county, or the state and the county and the towns. And then if it goes to just the state, how much the state will share with the county and the towns. So there's a lot of uncertainty about how much money is coming. Those cuts could be up to 20% across the board based on the state budget. That's at the state level. And that means less state aid for the county. The county's budget is about 200 million. It's $515 million budget. 200 million is state aid. About 210 million was sales taxes. That's going to disappear, and about 100 million is property taxes. So if, you know, pass-through state aid gets cut 20%, the county's going to have to find money somewhere. And among the many cuts that would have to happen would be, for example, municipal innovation grants. You know, applications for those kind of things to, you know, to do work around the towns and stuff. So in recent years, we've been overfunding that, adding money to it every year in the budget. But, you know, I suspect this year that there's no way that's going to happen. So.
And our calls with Mark, we have, you know, twice a week calls with the county executive, and he's already indicated that we should not expect to have any MIG grants this year, and that's understandable.
Oh, of course, and you know, but that sort of was the deal that we got. You know, the towns were supposed to be able to get those kind of grants, and it was one of the, you know, one of the things to make up for the money they took from the towns, that the county government took from the towns to bail out their budget back in 2014 in that bailout. So, you know, when they took all the sales tax money, you know, these were one of the things they did to make up for it, was to give these grants. And now that, you know, now being that things are struggling again, they're going to try to cut that back, you know, but again, you know, we have to make ends meet. We can't run a deficit just like you can't. So, and the state can't. Only the feds can, you know, run a deficit and help, you know, in this situation. So the counties, what is the county doing? The county has, the county executive and the county budget office has asked every department to go to, you know, come up with plans to cut to the bone, you know, which, you know, could mean 200 layoffs or more. they're, as the budget officer said, they hope that, that suddenly money from wherever will show up, but they're very serious about this, and obviously it's a big organization, so it takes a lot of time to determine where and what can be cut and what needs to be cut. But that's the reality that the county is facing right now, is hundreds of job cuts potentially later this year, which is less than, and separation deals, early retirement, incentive packages, things like that would probably be tried first. But we'll have to see where it goes from there. So so overall, the picture right now is pretty bleak. I think a lot of people are feeling it at home, so it's not as if I'm crying, sitting here crying for the county or anything, because there are people in our community who have it a lot worse, have lost their jobs and have no way to make ends meet. So I'm sorry to be the bearer of bad news on that, but better to be honest. So there's hard decisions coming, and hard decisions are never fun, and that's one of the reasons that we're unfortunately in these seats. The town board has town board, county legislature, county executive. These are hard choices that we're going to be having to make over the next year, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, depending on how long it takes us to build back up again. Hopefully it won't be too bad, but that's where we're at. I'm happy to take any questions from the board.
I don't have any questions. I have a couple of sheets. Does anybody have any questions, town board? Do you have any questions? I have a couple of sheets that reference something you mentioned, because we talked about sales tax, which runs again through the county. And so just for the folks at home, when we see increase or decrease in sales tax revenue, it means it has a sort of a heightened impact. And so this is this sheet, which was provided by the county. It shows the different municipalities, and it talks about what they received in the old agreement, the new agreement, their percentage share, and then the proposed distribution of the growth based on population. One of the things that was discussed when there was this new sales tax distribution was the fact that municipalities, as the economy grew, would get a larger percentage of each additional dollar above $25 million to help support their budgets. And we had actually reached a point finally just a year or two ago where we got back to where we were. And then of course with this COVID hit. And so if you look at the town of Red Hook here, for the first 25 million, we get 1.5% of that pool is our share. But for the additional dollars above and beyond that, it's 2.8%. So it's magnified by the order of 1.8 times. So every dollar that sales tax goes up is much better for us than on average, but every dollar that goes down hurts even more. So Chris mentioned some figures from the county, different time periods. So sales tax for Dutchess County in March, which was a partial COVID month, was down 17%. For April was down 27%. And then for May, you would think May with a little bit of people getting used to it or opening up would be better, but actually May was down 35.3%. And so if you take that and you multiply that by that 1.8 times magnifier, our share actually decreases well above 50% because there isn't that growth amount that we had budgeted. So for us, the minimum distribution that we will receive under this contract is $370,000 and change, but we had anticipated a total of $615,000 during the course of the 2020 sales tax year, which would have included the ensuing March distribution of 245,000 or so. We had received 217,000 in this year's distribution for last year's sales tax growth factor. So just sort of, put some numbers to what Chris is saying, how it's affecting us on the local level. And you'll see even the Village of Red Hook, for the village residents, they actually have a larger magnifying effect of their growth factor. They only got 0.3% of the initial 25 million, but then 0.7% of the growth factor. And if you want to know what the growth factor ratios are, they're based upon population. The assumption is that the population contributes evenly towards consuming these items that generate sales tax. And of course, we know that's not necessarily the case, but you do need some sort of mechanism to try to establish how those taxes were created and how they should be redistributed back to the taxpayers themselves. So that's the information.
If I could just add one thing,
Yeah,
the
sure.
agreement that changed how the sales taxes were distributed and cost, I guess, Red Hook a couple $100,000, I think it is, over the last 8 years. I can't remember the exact number. I know it cost the city of Poughkeepsie over $10 million, but that's up again for negotiation soon. So you might be in the middle of, again, this sort of, recession situation and have this contract come up again and, be in another situation where the county's looking for another opportunity to fill its coffers off the sales taxes and maybe looking to renegotiate. So I, bring that warning. I mean, I will oppose any sort of, from my 1 seat out of 25, but I bring that warning to the town board to keep an ear out for when that happens. That negotiation, unfortunately, doesn't actually involve the town of Red Hook. It's between the cities and the county. If your voices are loud enough about it when that time comes, perhaps we can avoid another county bailout at the towns and cities' expense.
All right. Well, thank you, Chris, just for giving us that brief presentation. Those slides came from which office in the county?
It was the county budget office.
Okay.
They gave the presentation during our June meeting. So, a lot of these things are lagged in terms of, the older unemployment numbers and things like that. So that, so everybody wear your masks, stay safe, stay healthy, and hopefully we won't see a resurgence, during phase 3, and we can move forward into phase 4.
Okay. Thanks, Chris. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you.
Stay healthy. Okay. We're going to move on to the next item on the agenda, which I actually want to jump around. They're two related things. They're related to speed limits. If it's okay with you, I'd like to take the College Park speed limit one first, if we could. Okay. All right, let's see here. So we are back once again, making requests of the state. And just for the folks at home, we'll sort of start fresh if you haven't been following along for the last umpteen years. New York is a home rule state, unless and until you would like to determine an appropriate speed on your roadways, and in which case the decision-making doesn't belong to us. It belongs to the state of New York and the Department of Transportation. And the underlying thinking is that if it were not for New York State being concerned about moving not only individuals, but goods, that it would have a negative effect upon the economy. And so therefore they need to have sort of a comprehensive, holistic view of how transportation can move freely and timely in order to get us all to work or to deliver goods to our houses. And so on that level, it seems to make sense. However, when you talk about very local roads, and in particular, I want to start here because this is another real good example. We've made a request for lowering roads in College Park several years ago in conjunction with other requests. It was a very bulky request of DOT, and it was summarily rejected, all of the reductions that were asked for. But in particular, these requests, which are very similar to the one that we made not that many months ago for the Forest Park roadways, these are residential subdivisions. They really don't have an impact on the potential for commerce or timeliness for individuals to get to and from work. They are limited in their scope of what they deal with, which is very small roadways. And frankly, in many of these roadways, you can't even do 35 miles an hour. Now, there's an extensive history. I think we had asked our town attorney to draft for us for the new town board members. You may not have already been aware, but a very lengthy history of how did we get here in the town of Red Hook. And it goes all the way back to the 90s, at which time the default speed limit in the town of Red Hook became 35 miles an hour unless there were exemptions made for particular roads. And so with regard to a College Park and the roadways there, and I think we all can agree 35 is sort of an outrageous speed. New York State Department of Transportation has essentially told us that they won't entertain anything lower than 30. And, in the case of Forest Park, they just rejected that application outright after they took a look at the neighborhood. We've been told that they won't receive requests. We were told this a while ago, unless and until the accurate current speed limits for each of the roadways were posted. And so our highway superintendent came to us years ago and said, we need to make this change and have them accurately posted if we do want to get those reductions made on the road. And so we have continued to fund new signs being put up so that we can in fact do this. And I should say that we actually have in the last few years had some success on some of our roadways. Bud's Corners Road, I think Chris has left us, but he was actually quite helpful. We were able to reduce the speed limit there. River Road, obviously, we got that reduced twice. 9G has been reduced. So we have some positive results, but we also have some really glaring situations that we just need to keep going back and making the case to DOT. Earlier this year, the town board signed off on resolutions put forth by the Association of Towns. One of those resolutions was to request of the state that we determine our own speed limits on our town roads. And I think that's a better methodology, certainly for trying to solve these issues. Because what happens is they get overwhelmed, DOT. And so what they did late last year was they actually changed their policy and said, we're not paying for the engineering study for your road speed limit requests. You, the municipality, have to cough up the money for those traffic studies. And of course, that just made it that much harder. They were trying to discourage the onslaught of requests that they were getting. But they might really save themselves a lot of work and certainly save us a lot of headache and heartache if they take a look specifically at residential roadways within residential subdivisions, because they serve a very specific purpose. And now, certainly in context of COVID, imagine that there are all these residents who have been asked to stay in these residential subdivisions. They have their teenagers, for example, who are trying to keep busy, and maybe they want to go bike on their residential neighborhood road. And so, I'm hoping that New York State, that has now said, and Governor Cuomo has said, he wants to take a fresh look at things, that I hope they take a fresh look at these requests, because it's too onerous for each and every municipality to keep going back time and time again to make these requests, be rejected, come back with, the same roadways for something that is really essentially a no-brainer. And so, I should tell you that DOT did a reverse. They got so much pushback from all the municipalities. They reversed that requirement for the municipalities to pay for and conduct a traffic study. And so we don't have to deal with that. With regard to the speed limit signs for College Park, I understand Teresa's with us here tonight. That those signs have been updated as of March 21st. So we can go ahead and make a request for DOT. I'm not sure how much they're working and out on the roadways right now during this COVID, but at least they'll have the request and we can follow up with them in the next couple of months to ensure that we get a good response. Absent that, what I'd like to do is get the support from you to craft a letter to the governor's office and to talk to him about this very specific issue about residential roadways and allowing municipalities to have home rule on these residential subdivisions. And I think that it would go a long way to making this whole process more efficient and certainly more equitable for communities. So do you all have any thoughts on that before we go ahead and discuss the resolution?
Thoughts on sending a letter?
On sending a letter with regard to speed limits in our residential subdivisions. So that would be, in our case, the Forest Parks, the College Parks, the Linden Acres, areas where, quite frankly, it's absurd to even have a 35-mile-an-hour speed limit.
I think I don't see how it could hurt, so why not? Let's send a letter.
Okay.
I agree.
Okay, good. Now that said, and I'm hoping there are some folks watching tonight who speed limit is an issue for them on their roadways. The experts tell us signage is not the cure. That's what's effective is to have policing. What's effective is to have traffic calming measures. Some of the things that some municipalities report having success with is those speed trailers. And as you know, we purchased one in conjunction with the Village of Red Hook as part of our negotiation with New York State. They're to give us 2 more speed trailers as part of that Empire State Trail project. And I will tell you that they appear to be finished, although I haven't gotten word, with the work there on River Road to accommodate bikers, and they have reduced the speed limit on River Road. That's now down to 30 miles an hour. And I think the people in College Park and Forest Park would, very much agree with me. If it can be 30 miles an hour on River Road, then it certainly can be 30 miles an hour or less on the College Park roadways and on the Forest Park roadways. They're very short, they're very, roughly narrow, and very residential with many cutouts for driveways. So we have increased for the folks at home. We have increased our policing budget over the years, and in large measure because they are out doing work related to speeding in our communities. For many years, folks could drive around and not worry whether or not there was a police officer on one of our residential or rural roadways. and they could go whatever speed that they wanted. And that obviously has changed. You see some of the, although not lately, you see some of the monthly reports that we have from the police on ticketing. We'll see when we get back into our court operations. We'll see what that backlog of speeding tickets in fact was. I think that's all I have. Teresa, is there anything you wanted to add to speed limits or College Park? Are you still with us? Let's see, there you are. Teresa, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you now. You unmuted me. Thank you.
Okay.
I think you covered it very well. We've been working on this since 2016. And I think that if you write that letter, maybe you'll get somewhere with it.
Okay. Very good. All right. So once again, College Park roadways, and this is resolution. Sue, is it 29 we're entertaining?
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. Dated June 24th, 2020. It's requesting it's number 3, requesting a review and modification of speed limits on College Park subdivision roads. And for the folks at home watching, we're requesting 25 miles per hour. They will not do area limits below 30, but we're requesting the very specific roads of Harvard, Princeton, Amherst, Columbia, Cornell, Vassar, and Thayer Lane. And so they will entertain a request. Now, granted, I want to remind you, they rejected Forest Park, which quite frankly isn't that unlike College Park. It's perhaps a little more spread out. Okay, resolution 29, June 24th, and I so move. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. All in favor, Bill O'Neill?
Aye.
Christine?
Aye.
Jacob?
Aye.
And myself. Thank you very much. So that's resolution number 29. Okay, jumping back to item number 2 is a resolution to request school zone status at Mill Road Elementary. So if you bear with me, I'm going to try and talk and walk at the same time and see if I can get up the document related to that one. And so once again, we just put in about a year and a half ago a request to lower the speed limit on Rockefeller. We thought we made a very articulate argument. We pointed out that Rockefeller has several really unique potential hazards. It has an elementary school. It has a daycare or nursery school. It has an agricultural operation that crosses the road, or it did at the time. It has a private soccer club, which has hundreds of cars and individuals using, at least on the weekends, or did, obviously pre-COVID. And we were summarily rejected for that. Now, one of the alternatives that we can take is that we can try to declare a school zone, a dedicated school zone. I'm told by one of the engineers at the county, we might have to contribute towards this traffic study. We'll see what we get back from the state. But this would be, I think, very important to us. Rockefeller Lane has a 45-mile-an-hour speed limit by the school. Obviously, there's a cautionary sign there for 25 miles an hour in yellow, but that is just cautionary. It's not enforceable. Putting a 45-mile-an-hour speed limit sign by the school just sends the absolute wrong message to drivers. And unlike the College Park roadways, which are short in their tangents, this is a very long stretch. It does have some curvy spots, which could contribute to slowing down, but primarily it doesn't have that severe an angle. And so this is, I think, very critical that we make this request. We'll find out what the requirements are, but we're talking about 300 feet east of the school property line, and to be reduced somewhere between 15 to 25 miles an hour. And we're asking the state to study this. It is a school zone. Department of Education is a state agency, and obviously safety of the children is paramount. There are a lot of cars that go in and out. We've had issues with the parking lots not being able to accommodate around pickup time. And so this is a separate and slightly different action. And I wonder, does anybody have any questions about this?
I do.
Okay.
That's a question for Teresa.
Okay.
So when you're driving east from Linden, there's the cautionary yellow triangle that says school zone 25, but then perhaps 50 yards ahead of it, right in front of the school, there's the official town sign that says 45. In the intervening time that we make this application, it seems like it would make sense to reverse those. So if they're not going to lower the speed limit to 45, at least have the school cautionary sign be by the school and not the other way around. Is there something we can do about that?
I'll look into the MUTC. Am I muted still?
No.
We can hear you.
Okay. I'll look into the MUTCD requirements and see what can be done there. When we post our speed limit signs, we usually go by the book. There may be a little wiggle room. This was the first time that was requested, so I will follow up on it.
It just didn't make a lot of sense to me, at least as a driver.
I believe that the 25 mile per hour cautionary sign was there before the speed limit was changed, the signage from 35 to 45. So we replaced the 35 with the 45, and then the 25 was there. So it's just a matter of taking one sign down, putting the other sign up. But if we're going to reverse them, we have to check and see what the MUTCD guidelines are.
Thank you.
Thank you. And again, I just want to reiterate, having the police follow up, take a look at the speeders. You get the added benefit. I don't need to tell you, the folks in College Park, the issues that they encountered last year, having the police presence, and I, again, will advocate to make sure that we have good local patrolling for these purposes. It's critical that they be around and familiar with each one of these neighborhoods and taking a look at the speeding issues. And we get a whole host of data that comes out from these speed trailers when they're on roads, showing us what people are doing. And so, I think this is very important that we work on what's effective and traffic calming measures and so on and so forth, because signage is only respected by people that respect the signage. So, all right. Is there any other comments? I imagine this is a pretty straightforward request. All right, this is resolution number 30. It's requesting a school zone speed limit on Rockefeller Lane in the vicinity of Mill Road Elementary School. Whereas the town of Red Hook has noted the speed limit to be 45 miles an hour, and that the conditions exist where it would be appropriate to have a school zone speed limit of 15 to 25 miles an hour would be much more appropriate. It's from the point 300 feet east of the school property line. So that would be, near the soccer fields there. And that a study should be conducted and that it should be reduced to 25 miles per hour or less as required. And so I move resolution number 30. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor, Bill O'Neill,
Aye.
Bill Hamel,
Aye.
Jacob Testa.
Aye.
Thank you very much. Okay. That's item number 3. While we have Teresa here, Teresa, you're still with us?
Yes, I am.
Okay, so we received just late this afternoon, we received the second of 2 intermunicipal agreements in previous meetings. We had 2 shared service IMAs come back to us as part of a group of 5 municipalities, neighboring townships, that we would like to have the opportunity to share both services and equipment.
What were the 5? I thought it was just 4.
Was it 4? Thank you. 4 it is. And we have 2 of them back. The last one came in this afternoon. So it's Town of Rhinebeck and Town of Milan. And so you have in front of you, and these agreements were the agreements, they're in the exact format that we reviewed them at our town board meeting several meetings ago. And our town attorney has reviewed the copies sent back to us. And they're type 2 actions. So we'd like to squeeze this in if we could. This would be resolution 31 and 32. Let's take up Town of Rhinebeck, which at their most recent meeting approved our form. So it's resolution 31 dated June 24th, 2020, authorizing the execution of an intermunicipal agreement with the Town of Rhinebeck for shared services regarding Highway Department Public Works Services. And this is at the direction of the highway superintendents at of the various municipalities, and they're to keep track of the services and the costs associated with them. Any questions? If not, I'd entertain a motion. I'll go ahead and make a motion to approve resolution 31. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, I think Bill O'Neill got in there first.
Bill
Hamel? I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
Well, I got Christine Kane anyway, so
Okay, very
All
good.
right, thank you, Sue.
yeah, I heard you.
All right, so all in favor, Bill O'Neill,
Aye.
Bill Hamel,
Aye.
Jacob Testa.
Aye.
All right, resolution number 31 passes. The same exact agreement, Town of Milan, we received that today in the afternoon. Would be resolution 32 dated June 24th. It's authorizing the execution of an intermunicipal agreement with the Town of Milan for shared services regarding Highway Department Public Works Services. And I so move. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Christine. Everybody's
For sure somebody else would jump in there.
kind enough to let us know. Okay, Bill O'Neill,
Aye.
Bill Hamel,
Aye.
Jacob Testa.
Aye.
Very good. Thank you very much. Okay, last we have public comments and correspondence. Under public comment, we received a letter from Sarah. I hope you all read that letter. She and I did have a conversation about some of the information in the letter, but let's take it to heart. We also have correspondence from the Northern Dutchess branch of the NAACP. I hope you received a copy of that letter. It's with regard to the mural at the within the village. If you've been following the news or following your social media, you know there's been lots of discussion about the mural and what it depicts, what it doesn't, how it may impact people. It was certainly the subject of some very spirited discussion. And the NAACP has written to us and they have expressed their opinion. It is in the village, it is on private property. I guess there's some discussion of whether it's public art. But this is something that the working group would have looked at. As it turns out, however, the owner of the property did paint over the mural. So there's a blank canvas there, now a canvas with a banner congratulating the 2020 class on it. And so there's some discussion about the future of that wall and what future mural might look like. But the NAACP has written to us on that subject. And then the very last thing I have before we close tonight's meeting is correspondence from Royal Karting. They are advising us, and this is something important, I think, for the folks at home. They are advising us that they are going to be raising the costs associated with bringing garbage to our facility. So they have sent word to TJ, the manager of the recycling center, that the small bags that currently cost $1.75 starting the beginning of July are going to go up to $3 a bag, and the medium bags that are $3.50 are going to be going up to $5 a bag, and the $5 bags are going to be in essence doubled in price for $10. So this is yet another increase that they would like to pass on to our residents using our facility. And I don't know how you feel, but I'm not happy about this. I can't understand how these kind of percentage increases are warranted. I understand that refuse and recycling costs have gone up for haulers, but the level of activity that our recycling center is getting, especially during the COVID times, is large. And so we're looking at other options. And so some of those options may be to continue with containers as we did during the COVID times. Financially, that worked out better for us. But then, you know, we noticed that they're now wanting to charge more for the containers, more than they're charging neighboring communities. So we're going to have to figure out something. Let's stay open to a bunch of different ideas. And of course, TJ is, you know, doing a wonderful job of saying, you know, that he's willing to do anything and to work with whatever the situation is. But I think we're all sort of upset at what Royal is proposing. So more on that to come. And so that's all I have. Okay. Well, thank you all for joining us. I'd like to make a motion that we close the meeting of June 24th. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor, Bill Hamill.
Aye.
Jacob Testa.
Aye.
Christine Kane. Thank you all very much.
Good night.
Good night.
Thank you, Robert.
Night.
Thanks, everyone.